Hi, everyone. This is a new session where we continue developing the Entity Intelligence client library for converting natural language into SQL commands using AI. And Omar, how are you doing?
I'm good, Hassan. Thank you.
All right. So here's what we can do today. Last time we kind of did a little bit of cleanup, you know, and we have the PR open for the code rub for kind of renaming things, kind of
I
getting
have a couple of free names that I did as well.
uh
I didn't push them yet. I just want to show them
yeah,
first.
yeah, let's do it. Let's go for
Yeah,
it.
it's about these foundation services just to make things consistent with.
Let's do it.
Okay,
Okay.
so I renamed the queries to data queries
Mm-hmm.
and table metadatas to metadata queries.
Okay.
That's like just a simple name here, but it will like instead of before showing under services,
Mm-hmm.
it was queries and table metadatas, right?
Right. Right.
I just made them data queries, data query service, like that, metadata query service.
Does that mean that you have a metadata, I think the last file needs to be changed to metadata query service dot exceptions.
Actually, yes, correct.
So that's one. And then does that mean that all the exceptions and the models follow the same naming convention?
Yes,
Like, see,
so
go ahead.
yeah, so we have metadata queries, data queries, and the exception names changed as well.
Okay,
Um,
so look at your I metadata query. It returns table information.
where are you looking?
This file that you're on right now,
Oh,
this code.
okay. Yeah,
So you see how it says table information. So
yeah.
we either we either need to call it metadata query, or we need to, you know what I mean? So we need to somehow find the match between the model, right,
Hmm.
and the service, right, and the namespace. So you got the namespace and the service in line. That's fantastic. But I think we still also need to make the models um, make
Mm,
sense. So we could
like,
we
mm,
we could call this would be a very quick change, by the way, because Visual Studio would just help you rename everything. But
yep.
I think I think that we would call this something like uh, metadata table or something. It needs to have you know what I mean? Like if you're
Yeah,
returning
yeah, yeah.
a student model, you're supposed to have a student service,
I
right? And so
understand.
on. Mm.
We can call it like back to table metadata, maybe.
I don't know. Metadata, should we rename the model to just be metadata query? See, the problem with the word query is that it implies an action more than a noun. You know what I mean? Like when you
Hmm.
think about a query, right? It's not a query service. It's a metadata service that uses a query as an action, to kind of get that metadata, right?
Yeah.
So, like I said, naming is hard, and invalidating cache is hard. Um, my personal suggestion is you could call this a metadata service and call the model just metadata. You know, so the metadata service is returning metadata, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
that
Yeah.
would be much easier, right? Go inside table information real quick. Yeah, and this table column in here, it would be something like a branch off of that. So it would be a metadata column.
Mm.
So this would be metadata, the model would be metadata, and this would be metadata column.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like there's some more work. I can work on it like later,
Yeah,
just to
it's
clean it up. We can
yeah,
continue on something else. Yeah.
yeah, it's up to you. Either way
Yeah.
is fine. Let's see here what Dinesh says. Salam, you people remember last time I mentioned I am being moved to support. Now I am asked to do the PBIs. What's PBI stand for?
Power,
Product.
Power BI.
Is that what it is? Power BI?
It's a
And requirements. Do you think I can stay for one more year here or I should move right now? If you're not happy, then move. Whether we tell you or not, that's the deal of it, right? If you're not growing and you're not happy, then definitely move. What does Gregory say? Table set. So it would be a table set service. Well, it's multiple tables, right, Greg? So table set service, and then underneath that would be what? Table set column? Whatever the naming convention may be, and I need to actually document this in the standard. I try to be not like a lot of people when they talk about standardization, they talk about not being prescriptive, but that's exactly the problem with the standards or quasi standards that we have today is that it just leaves the door way too open, that people start arguing and never get anything done. But let me just this is actually a great point, and I want to really kind of press on this. So, whatever your service, because the service, so first of all, there's the principle of single model, right? Single model. So, whatever you're working with, your contract needs to match that. So, if your service is working with a student, then you have a student service, and the student service will throw student exception, whatever that validation, dependency, whatever the case may be. This consistency in the modeling here makes it a lot easier for our brains as human beings to know where to go, right? Imagine if a student service is returning books like that and it's throwing, argument null exception. It becomes harder and harder to track back what the service is about. A big mistake a lot of people think is that the people that will be reading your code will be as focused as you were writing it. Sometimes people have to sift quickly through your code so they can find a problem and move on. They're not going to sit there and glare at the amazing code that you write. That's not the case. So the code needs to be stupid. I really mean this. It needs to be stupid, super dumb. Anybody could understand it. Okay, so the model gives a birth to a functionality, which is the service, and the service emits all of that. So, well, if that's the rule or that's the principle, then we need to apply that principle into real life situations. We need to apply this principle into this problem that we're trying to solve. What are we really trying to get, right? We're trying to get table, SQL Server, table informations, right? So we're trying to get the table information about a particular SQL server. What does that even mean? I want to know all the tables, and inside every table, I want to know the columns of these tables. Right? That's really all that it is. There's a SQL server that has a bunch of tables, and every table has a bunch of columns. So I think the confusion here is reasonable because we're really looking for something that can describe, like can truly describe what this is, right? So why don't we ask AI about this? Like, let's just go here and just see what the AI would say to us. We'll ask both Bard and OpenAI and see what happened here. Okay. So what do you call in one word, what would you call the information retrieved from a SQL server that has all table names and the columns within these tables and the types of these columns? Like there gotta be a name that can describe. I think metadata is not too bad. We just need so schema. I think that's what, and I love that BARD is just one word, schema. That's it. I think that's what Greg said, like, I don't know, 15 sessions ago. He said we need to have a schema, right? So what about OpenAI? What would OpenAI say about this? Let's see
Actually,
here.
suddenly schema service makes a lot of sense.
Look, 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 look.
Yeah,
Schema. Just
yeah.
one word. One word. Why didn't we call it schema? That's weird. So,
But
so I
that's
think
not a language that people don't know SQL will understand, right?
that's true, but this is all internal too, right? This doesn't propagate outside of that realm. It's for us to be able to architect and structure our services properly.
Yeah, if it's for us, then we can do anything.
Yeah. Remember, we are engineers are the very first customer of their own products. So you are a customer. Omar is a customer. We're actually the very first customers because we are firsthand interacting with the very product that we're trying to build. So schema, right? So schema is a great name, which brings us back to this equation here. Um, if we say schema service, then the model is going to have to be called schema. We can call it a schema table. I'm okay with that, but I want to call it schema, and then under schema there will be
Schema
schema
column.
table, and under that
Oh.
there will be schema column. See what I did there? So it's
Mhm.
three nested underneath. We could do it this way.
Yeah, so our table information will be schema,
Hmm.
and
And then
ins
it would have a list of schema table, and then that would have a list of schema column.
oh, actually, you added one more layer. So schema has a list of tables, and tables has a list of columns. Okay. Yeah,
I
required
I
some
th I
time.
think that might make a lot more sense than metadata, table information, all of that stuff, right? So Omar, that's the direction I want to take for the code drop for this. And it's not as scary as it sounds because that schema model just has an IEnumerable schema table. So your tests won't really change that much other than that you're just creating the empty shallow model and you're adding stuff into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We won't be returning enumerable anymore. We'll just return schema.
Exactly. You will
Yeah.
just be return because it's a schema service, so
Yeah.
it returns a schema model. I think that might make a lot more sense, and it kind of brings peace to my heart. Like I'm looking at it. You, by the way, just so you understand, every engineer out there knows deep down in their hearts what makes sense and what doesn't. Some of them decide to ignore it, and then it gets worse and worse as they continue to move forward with the project. And some people just get it straight. It's like paying off your TIC debt right there on at the gateway. What do you think, Kailu?
Yep. Yeah.
Good.
Sounds
So
good.
so
Yep.
s- so schema service, schema table. Well, let's play around with that, like while we're at it, since we're doing it. So I can go. Let's see how complicated it gets, but it's totally worth doing. So push what you have, or do you want me not to take what you have and start from what this branch is at, Omar?
Let me push it. I think half of it's still valid for the other one.
Yeah, half of it is
Okay.
still valid because you normalized the names at least at the exceptions level and at the service level, so it's still very much so valid. I'll do some, you'll do some, Kailu will do some, and then we make
Sure.
sure we don't break any tests, and that way we're having fun. What do you think?
Yeah, that's good. You can get latest in now.
Now? Okay, perfect. So let's do that. If I look at the commits, I see, no, it's still me. If I pull latest again. Are you pushing against users code drop table to table information?
Yeah.
Okay.
It already successful.
Yeah, now I see it. Now I see it. Okay, it takes a minute. Snail mail. Take a second there. Okay, let me get it from the top. So you called it data query and data information system, right?
Wait a second. You still get the old folder names. Why?
Do I need to refresh the project?
Yeah. No. Actually, you're right. I was looking at this. Yeah. This is right. This is right. Sorry.
Is this correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfecto. I will just run everything just to make sure things are in good standing. Come on, baby, you can do it. Let's go. It's okay. So while it's doing that, I see still and Visual Studio completely froze. Wow. There's table information. So you did a data query service, and the other one is, let me restart this dumb thing. It
With
died.
this logic we just discussed, even data query service may need a better name now.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that in a second. That's exactly what we're gonna talk about. We can take it one at a time too, but let me just restart Visual Studio. It completely froze. I guess 128 gigs of RAM is not enough for this thing, making the folks that are using Writer laugh at us. You know about Writer, Omar? Writer for C Sharp?
No.
So Writer is basically, there's this company called JetBrains. You heard of it. You were
Yeah.
talking the other day. So JetBrains are the people that basically developed this nice plugin for Visual Studio to kind of simplify the development experience. We were just talking about that the other day, right? They at some point in time they basically started developing special IDEs based on IntelliJ for every programming language. So if you go to Writer specifically is for .NET. And now that Microsoft shut down the development of Visual Studio for Mac, Writer is basically the only competitor sitting in front of VS Code, right? So that's the trick there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So there is an alternative if they shut down Visual Studio. It's good.
Right. I see a question here from QBQBQBBQ saying, can we see a demo of this running? There is actually the POC, QB, the POC for this project. If I do entity intelligence, son, uh, introduction to entity intelligence. This has the demo. We started this back in July. Take a look at it in this video and see how it works. And also the source code is included. So you're going to have a lot of fun. It's actually a very interesting idea. Okay. Okay, let's go back to this, to the IDE here. Let's, so I just verify, I just need to run the tests really just to know things are running. I hope it doesn't freeze on me again. Let's give it a whirl. If it freezes on me again, I'm switching over to Writer. That's what's going to happen. All right, here we go. So that's fantastic. Okay. So two services. There's AI service, this is okay, and then there's data query service, and then there's table information service. And I'm assuming the data query service just executes, right? That's all it does really.
You're looking at the unit test project, right? Let's maybe start with
From the top, sure.
from the top because unit test I haven't done it yet. So
Oh, you already changed this to schemas already.
just while we're
Ju-
talking, just
Just the
one of them.
one?
Yeah.
Cool,
Oh.
cool. That's fine. So okay, let's start with this one. So instead of metadata query, it's all gonna be. What if I did this? Control Shift. Let me be smart here. I'll do Control Shift. I'll say whatever you find a metadata query, switch it over to schema and match case and match whole word and go crazy. Replace all. It caught nothing. That's surprising. Why is that? Is it because of the match whole word?
It doesn't change file names, this one.
No. It found about 27. So I just took off the match whole name thing. Let's just review what it changed. Let's see here. So everywhere where it found, so failed schema service, what was this? Failed metadata query. Yeah, so that's okay. Failed schema service exception. Yeah, this is a good one. The rest of those is schema service dependency. Unfortunately, unfortunately it didn't change the file names, which is really whack. But we can go and change these file names ourselves. It's not a problem. And I'm assuming on the in the test side it said data information service tests and data information. I'm surprised it didn't change anything on the logic. Why not? There's no mention of anything in here. Interesting. Because it still says data information service, whatever. I think that's why. What do you think? Right? Okay, so let me change the file name. Let me take that question first. Nazir says, do you people maintain the migrations? Maintain the migrations. What does that mean, Kylo? I don't know. Maintain the migrations? Schema service.
Well,
I don't understand the question.
I think maybe the question is yes. I mean, the answer is yes. I mean,
The answer is yes? Is
if
that what it is? Okay.
I guess, right? If it has migrations, we will maintain it and change it if it needs to, right? We need to, right? So
Right. Right. Okay, I guess we do. We do, Nazir. That's what it is. All right, replacing all namespaces as well. So that takes care of that part too. So it's schemas like that. Let's see if I rebuild the world, if something's gonna blow up. Didn't you just love that you have unit tests in a project that tells you when you do crazy cleanups like these, you know, if your world's still functional to some extent. It's not going to catch everything. I know that. I do recognize that. But it just gives you that kind of peace of mind that your application is still it's still functional. Like for instance, it wouldn't catch something like this. Built
It
metadata
wouldn't, yeah.
query.
Yeah,
It
like if
would.
you change the message here, even it wouldn't, because I think we need to improve the tests a little bit.
The test needs to fail. That's right. The test needs to fail first. Okay, so I did this renaming and the tests are passing. Let me go rename on this is schema exceptions. This still says metadata queries. I need to change that. And this still says table metadatas. So this is schemas. That will change it across the board. And this will be schemas as well. That just changes everything. Right? So all of this is under schema now. Now let's go into um, the table metadata here and change all of these to schemas. Right? So schemas. And then let's change everywhere where it says table information to schemas. Schema service, basically. And I trust, yeah, the schema service test, that's perfect, yeah. Schema service tests and schema service tests. I know someone at some point was able to configure this at the project level to be nested. I just don't remember how they did. Was it web they switched? Yeah, there you go. So you see how when I switch to web on the project, now these files are nested. Do you guys see this? So if the name matches properly, it will nest right underneath it. So you see how data query service tests, right? It listed all the other pieces. So there's exceptions, logic, and validations.
All the partial classes, like, yeah, remind me of Windows Forms. All
Yep,
the,
yeah, we do rely on these a lot heavily.
yeah.
Now the real question here is why it didn't do that with this guy here? Is it because if I take away retrieve, it doesn't nest further beyond, well, that's silly. That's just silly. But since it's only one function, I think it's okay. If I do it like this for one function, if there's multiple functions like post and retrieve and whatnot, then we need to branch out. Okay, cool. And then I can do this here as well. So nesting all of these files underneath like that. If we decide to write any other functionality there, then yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how to do this, but that's not a problem I care to solve at the moment. So schema service tests, the name here is still wrong. Schemas, rename, that takes care of everybody. Perfect. Now, the next piece here is to change the actual model name, right? So we want to change the actual model name. So let me commit this first. Let me rebuild and commit this. Let me run the test one more time just to make sure. There we go. Okay, so all of these are clean. Let me do here code rub, change a data query to schema. Right, I think that's what we changed basically. We took away metadata query. Metadata query and changed that to schema. Okay, Kailu, do you wanna start changing the model names on this?
I can.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Okay.
So we could start with the exceptions. That's a very easy one. So it'll be schema, service, dependency exception, and so on. And then we can dig a little bit deeper beyond the obvious. And then Omar, you and I need to think about the other service then. Since Kylo will be done with the models and I already did the service, then the other service would be the question, and that's what you called data queries. So there's metadata queries and data queries, right?
Yeah, it was called queries before. Yeah, it's now data queries.
Why don't we just call it a data service? Like data service is fine because it really goes and gets you data. At least that's how the original design was, and that would be a very easy change to make because um, it's really just retrieving data, right?
Yeah. So it's under folder called datas, then data service.
Yeah, it will be datas and then data service and then data service dependency exception and so on. It just goes on like this. And instead of result row and column whatever, we could have a data model, and underneath that data model there are the columns and the values. Well, it needs to be a model that matches the service name for readability. Dinesh says, where's Milan? He's on vacation, but hopefully he'll be back in October, so we'll see. Okay, so this is so just pay attention to the file name. You see how the first file name says failed metadata query? It needs to be failed schema service exception. The actual name of the file I already changed, but the message and the file name is the one that we want to kind of take a look at. And occurred has two C's. That's line 13. And yeah, two C's and two R's. Occurred. Yeah. And let's see here. So this namespace is good. Now just the file name, the actual file name is kind of whack. Actually, 1 second, Kay. Instead of changing the message, we will change the test to fail to report the message. So let the message change be the last one. I'll let Omar do that one. We just need to change the file names and the model names, and that's it. Yeah, so that's that. And then I think, Omar, we would need a brand new model called schema. So that's part of your part. We don't have to do that one on stream because I think we'll run out of time, but we would need a model that has an IEnumerable of tables, right? Or table, yeah, table.
Schema table. Schema
Yes,
table.
schema, and then yeah, schema table and schema column,
Hmm.
something like that. Or we could call it schema table column. That's better, right? Because you're nesting. So schema, schema table, and schema table column, like that. What do you think?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. I wish there was a faster way. Greg, sorry, I logged myself out. Um, Greg, do you know a faster way to find and replace file names in Visual Studio? There gotta be a way. I mean, we can always write a script, but if Visual Studio has that outside of the box, that would be wild.
There are extensions for that.
An extension to change the file name?
You
Okay.
can like multi-select, I think. You can set the extensions. Let me see. Which names.
Huh. There gotta be a way where we can actually change the actual file, but what do you think?
Yeah, there are like rename files by type extension, but like they're not popular. I don't know how good they are.
So it's just an extension, it's not something outside of the box, basically.
No, not outside box.
Ah, shame. Okay. Yeah, Greg says not off the top. I don't think there is. It's very possible there isn't something out there. I I guess it's because of like reaching critical mass. How often, how many people kind of need that? And then that kind of drives some of this. But again, there are things in Visual Studio that people don't even know about let go using. Okay, so schemas, failed schema dependency exception, failed schema service exception, invalid operation, schema exception, invalid schema exception, schema dependency exception, schema dependency validation exception, and schema perfect. So this model for the schema, don't worry about that one. So revert the change on that one. I'll tell you what we're gonna do there. This one, this model will be called schema table. So instead of schema, just call it schema table. So that's one. And the one below it, where it says table column, we're gonna call it schema table column. Perfect. That should be okay. This table column metadata is internal, right? That's what comes back from. I'm assuming that's what right, Omar. Let's find the reference for it. Yeah, I bet you this guy is what comes back
The
uh
broker.
from the broker. Well, whatever comes from the broker, we map it into that first somehow. Let's just see what it looks like. Yeah, so I have execute query. Go inside this execute query async. Yeah, okay, what about queries? So see, it's just generic and it basically just generates. So how does it know where to put that information? That's wild. Is that just how Dapper works or Entity Framework works for this? I think that's how Dapper works. It just tries. There gotta be a way though. That's impossible. How does it know to put that information in that particular order? Magic. Oh, wait, I know what it is. The query that we pass in, can you go back one, Kailu, for the service that you are at? This, the query, so this select all query, go inside that one, the select all table information query. I'll tell you how it's doing that in a second, if I remember this proper. There, so you see how it basically defines every column to match the property name on the model. And then Dapper does the magic. That's how it comes through. And it is beautiful because it's internal, like the mapping is not really happening in the broker, but in the external library that the broker is calling. That's beautiful. That's amazing. So the only thing here then is that we need to find, what do you want to call this guy? Schema metadata or just schema? What should we call this model, Kailu? What's a good name? Omar, what's
We
an
said
idea here?
we shouldn't we call it just schema?
Well,
Like,
it has different properties.
oh, you mean for this table column metadata? I advocate to leave it till the end
Leave it till
until
the end.
we, yeah.
It's an easy change though, just so you know. It's a very easy change. We just need to know what to call it, you know. Okay, fine. I'll leave it alone. Um, okay, Kailui, then you're done here. Let's give it to Omar to write some failing tests for the messages. I'll make the
But just a
messages.
second, like
Mhm,
schema table column.
mhm.
We need schema.
Yes, that's what you're gonna do off stream.
Oh, okay, that's what you
Yep,
meant. Okay.
yep. All right, Kay. Should we change the names while we're at it? Yeah, let's just say retrieve schema async. Yeah, let's do that, Kay. Yeah, this is much cleaner. You know, you get to just close your eyes and just to be you know, straight with the world. You did it right. So schema, just one. Schema async. Yep. So that should include the interface. Perfect. And then this would be convert to it will be to schema, but that's when Omar does that model. So don't worry about that one yet. Yeah. Yeah, I'll let him kind of change the rest of these, but we should be okay here. All right. Yeah, push this through. Okay. And then Omar, really what you want to do is that you need to give me failing tests for everywhere where it says metadata or data query or whatever. Just give me a failing test that says this is supposed to be schema exception. And we could wrap up.
You mean for the error messages, right?
Hmm. So you're just basically going to every test where the exception is
Yeah.
explicitly saying, oh, how come we didn't do the exception? Was that before we changed the standard? Interesting. So if that's not the case, then we're gonna need to update the tests to match the new standard where it explicitly talks about the inner message, right? I think Kailu here is just gonna take care. Kailu, if you find data, whatever you find data, you flip it into schema, that might help. Might. No promises though. But in the same file, it has to be in the same file. Mm, mhm. Greg says tapping and pasting is quicker. I think I could find faster doing numerous file names in Explorer than letting Visual Studio discover the changes. Yeah, true. Tabbing and so and then he said tabbing and pasting is quicker. Not a good for streaming experience. True. Azir says, do you have a Dabber plus EF Core repository? I mean, can we use both of them in a project, assignee project? If yes, then can we have a quick idea on that from your side? You really should dig into previous videos that I've done before. It talks about heavily about EF Core, but putting EF Core and Dapper together, I haven't done that before. I just I didn't find the need for it. It's not impossible. I just didn't find the need for it.
Strangely, like people use it a lot, that combination in when they do CQRS. They use Dapper for querying and EF for commands, right?
Yeah, CQRS is craziness. I don't know why people are. What do you think about CQRS? Just for the people thinking, what is that? Some people kind of categorize and split the flows into reads and writes. So they put all the work that does the read into one service and the work that does the writes into another service. It sounds easy until you start doing coordination and orchestration. Then it gets very complicated because in some places you'll be doing writes for reads, and in some places you'll do reads for writes. So what do you think, Omar? What you got on CQRS on this part?
No, I don't like it. I don't hate it. If it's needed, like, yeah, it's kind of all eventual, right? Eventual consistency, and if you have read replicas, it might be useful
Mm,
uh, where you have one primary database for write, but I
hmm
think it depends.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. What do you think, Kay? Are you good on this side for the verbiage of the tests? Schema
There's no
dependency.
verbiage here, but
Yeah, I
well,
know.
that's a new standard
Y-
upgrade.
yeah, that's fair. I'll let Omar kind of write the expected messaging, but in terms of variable names, retrieve schema async. Oh man, I love this name a lot. Retrieve schema async. It's perfect. Why didn't we think about that? I mean, Greg told us put schema in there, but it was too loud. We were too loud to think to take other opinions. You see, the thing, Omar, is with design decisions are much more expensive than um, code bad decisions. Like if you make a bad decision in a service, it's a lot cheaper than a bad design decision. It becomes a lot more expensive this way.
True.
Now, if you talk about architecture decisions, yeah, that's the end game. Like, imagine uh, these could take years to change the direction of. Imagine if people decided at any point in time that the right direction they're gonna take with femto services or serverless architecture, and it just became a nightmare in terms of infrastructure, and you need to consolidate, denormalize, just bring things back together into maybe microservices or macro services or even a monolith. See how expensive that would be. Like an architecture decision is just a disaster if it's not thought through. And unfortunately, there are no debuggers for architecture decisions. It's an intriguing idea, but where do you even start? Maybe we should build a project that leverages AI to validate architecture. Do you think that's a good idea?
I was seeking for this, like for the standard itself, but we said no toasters here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What else I wanted to kind of say here? What's more expensive? Can you tell what's more expensive than an architecture bad decision? There's one thing.
More expensive than architecture, this bad decision.
Mm. So an architecture bad decision is very costly, right?
Hmm.
Because you're gonna have to change a lot of things. A design, internal server design decision is also costly, but not as expensive as architecture. And then a code decision, bad decision in code is costly, but it's not extremely costly, at least not as much as design. There is something that is irreparable, completely damaging in terms of bad decisions. Can you take one wild guess? It's just one level above architecture. What would that be?
Technology itself.
The business. The
Oh, the
business.
business. Hmm.
Greg says now there may be a schema. Well, yeah, Greg, but why are we using schema property anyway? We're not using it for anything. So we're just gonna get rid of it. That's my thought. So yeah, Omar, the business decision, the business comes in and says, I think it's a great idea that we build an app that, I don't know, plays like a plays the cello or something. I don't know. And then the decision itself or the investment itself is just, it doesn't hurt the engineers much because they don't have to rework anything until the business comes back and says, um, we're not going in that direction anymore. We need to change the app to do this instead. Oh my God, just 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 a nightmare waiting to happen.
That's a good idea for a podcast. I heard, like, I listened to most of your episodes there.
Oh, the
Interesting.
podcast on Spotify?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, to be honest with you, a lot of these streams are actually more like hangouts. It's like a podcast while we're writing code, right? So we are doing something, right? Like a lot of the podcasts, they will talk about the topic, they will dig really deep into it, and then that's it. But we're digging into it while someone is picking up the code. I'll be writing something and talking, and it helps a lot when people are kind of discussing these topics because that's pretty much how my pairing sessions go. If you're pairing with me in a work day, you'll just be talking about all kinds of different topics, and then we go eat together and come back. If we're working in the office, and then continue to pick up where we left off. Um, I did this with a lot of teams. Kailu might have some exposure to this, and some people came back to me and they said, it's very fulfilling. You feel like you get to communicate with engineers, solve problems, talk about different things. It doesn't feel like work, throughout the day, but it also differs. Some people don't feel like talkative in one day, so you're gonna have to kind of read the room, when that happens. Okay. Yeah, in my podcast, Omar, like there's one that is visual that's on YouTube, and there's one that's on Spotify. And the one that's visual, I think I interviewed a lot of people like David Fowler, Steve Sanderson, a lot of the people that actually built the technologies, the folks that are behind Entity Framework, a lot of them. All right,
I
it's your turn, sir.
Okay. Let me.
Nazir says, what's tuple create? Tuple create, what is that? Is the tuple model now has a create functionality? Oh, I guess it just creates a tuple for you. I think it's not a very necessary functionality, but thanks for letting me know. I actually didn't know. Like I guessed what it does. Kylo, did you know that you could do this? Tuple create string like that. What is that? If I say var x equals, it's not very happy. Why is that? Let's see here. Table create and then string. Then you have to pass items to it. Okay, so Nazir, Omar. Is that how you create it? And then if you do X, it gives you the tuple. Okay, cool. I guess people don't want to do this anymore. Weird.
Yeah. Kylo, does it build on your end, the whole project?
I will also pull from my side and see if it builds on my end. It should, but let's see. Yeah, it builds for me.
Yep, good for me.
Okay.
Is it freaking out on your side, Omar?
Let me see. Just rebuilding. Let's see. Yeah, it's weird. Retrieve schema async.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not. Yeah. Private task. Did I got latest, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Retrieve schema async. Correct. Yeah, it's freaking out. Let me just clean it.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes Visual Studio will bug out like that.
Depends how
So,
many files got touched, I guess.
right, that's true. And sometimes if you unload and reload the project, it will pick up these symbols. So just keep that in mind. If it's
Yeah,
bothersome
yeah.
like this red line is not real. You know it's not real. It's just Visual Studio bugging out, right? This started to happen recently, like maybe post 2020, 2019. It started to happen, and it started to become more and more frequent.
Yeah, actually, I think it will run the test then.
Yeah, it will. It should.
Yeah.
Wait for it.
Oh, sorry, a bit of. I'm running other things on the side. I can't
Yep.
close right now, so.
All that cryptocurrency mining that you're running is
No,
is
it's
the
not worth it. So electricity prices where I live in last year
uh-huh.
jumped out 10 times.
Oh my God.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So let's see. Where the expected here,
Mm,
scheme, let's start one by one. I think there is no overload yet. So I'll need to go create one with an overload first.
mhm.
Yeah. It's string message. Okay.
Yeah, so the goal here, because of the time of the stream, Omar, you do know the goal, right? So just all failing tests for the proper
Mhm.
message that's supposed to go out, right? And then
Yeah,
we can close, feel free to close this, but the one thing that I really want you to take a look at offline is the schema model and how to fix the
sure.
tests to not break with that. If you fix that part, then the one last task we have is really finding a better name for the metadata for the external model that's coming from or really the mapped in model from the database. And that would be it, my friend.
Okay,
Cool?
that's good. Thank you. We'll do it. You mean next session, right?
Yeah, next session.
Okay. Yeah,
All right.
that's good.
Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate you all. Talk to you
Thanks.
later. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.